Sophie Hellyer. Sophie, how are you doing? Welcome to the weMove podcast.
Welcome.
Thanks. Hi.
We turned the podcast equipment on after 4 hours of conversation, like we always do.
Yeah, I know there were several points in conversation where we're like, oh, we should probably record this.
Yeah. Well, we kind of always do it. We turn up and we just end up getting chatting, and it just, the conversation flows. And at some point, you're like, oh yeah, we should turn this on. So, but it's kind of nice because you get to know the person, and holding a microphone is kind of pretty unnatural unless you're a lead singer. So that kind of loosens it up.
Do not want to hear me sing.
We're going to karaoke later, no? So anyway, welcome. Thanks for joining us and coming to hang out and have a conversation with us, really.
Yeah, no worries.
So you came across James's radar to begin with, right?
Yes, I've known you known of you.
Creepy, no.
Known of you. We have mutual friends.
Yes, we do.
So
yeah, the same. I've also been following weMove for, I guess since you started, through some mutual friends.
Who are they?
Well, I think, do you know James Aiken, who does
Yeah.
Aiken? Yes, I think through James.
Yeah, and you know Matt Barr. And
Yeah.
So mutual friends.
There
And
you go.
Richie, you had Richie on your podcast just recently,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Richie's become a really good friend of ours. We get to hang out with him quite a lot. In fact, last weekend we were with Richie and Matt last weekend. Yeah,
In the sea.
all in one go.
I
And
saw
Brighton.
you. It was raining and it looked like fantastic
Fantastic.
weather. It looked
Yeah.
very weathery.
Yeah, yeah, very classic. This is
Yeah.
what it's like going into the English Sea all the time.
Yeah, no, I follow. I didn't know who was there, but I saw the Instagram stories from someone.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know you, we were talking about this earlier on. The term professional surfer would be thrown at you, I suppose. But we were talking about this earlier on, and
Yeah.
you weren't saying it was an inaccurate description, but you weren't saying that it was an accurate description as well. But there's more to that than just
Yeah.
surface level.
So I think a lot of the time I've been called a professional surfer, and that's been a label that's been stuck to me. But I don't think that's a way I would have ever defined myself. I said to you, the only contest earnings I've ever, the only money I've ever won in surfing through a contest, €200 once ever. And I think the definition of a professional athlete is someone who makes their main income from the sport. And to be honest, most of my money that has been made through surfing has been through modelling and sponsorships to do with modelling. So I don't feel like professional surfer is a just term. I'm not a competitive surfer anymore. So
It's interesting. We or I certainly talk about. I like the concept that everything's just leading on to something else, and actually being the surfer that you are, the professional surfer or non-professional surfer, has led to so many different things that you do. And I was watching your TEDx talk recently, and how even a seemingly simple thing like the beach clean thing that you're doing, comes as a result of the surfing.
yeah.
That everything just leads to the next thing, and the surfing has led to numerous different things for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Surfing has been a huge part of my life, and I do always say I don't know if it's the best thing or the worst thing I ever did learning how to surf, but it's
Did you grow up surfing?
yeah, well my dad taught me to surf when I was about 13, so I grew up by the beach, and my sister surfed as well. So but yeah, then every decision I've ever made in my life has kind of been shaped by surfing in the ocean, as far as the friends I have and the jobs I do and where I studied at university, and just absolutely everything I do is kind of centered around the ocean. So yeah, it's definitely led as my career progresses through my life, it is kind of just all an extension of the surfing's at the the base of it all.
You were living in Ireland, right?
Huh?
You were living in Ireland?
Yeah, I was living in Ireland for the last 5 years, and then I moved to London about 9 months ago.
Why move to Ireland?
So I was living out in Australia doing, I guess, what people think is the dream life. But I was living in Australia, and to be honest, I was just really not happy over there. I was struggling a little bit with my mental health, and I cut my head open quite badly with my fins. So I had huge gashes through my head, and I couldn't go in the water for a couple of weeks. And that kind of made me face up to how miserable I was out there. So I flew back to England on a one-way flight, just left all my stuff behind, flew back to go to a friend's wedding. And while I was back for that, I got offered a shoot with Finisterre in Ireland. I was meant to be there for 3 days, and I ended up staying for 4 years. And never went back to Australia. So yeah, I there's a I don't know if you know Fergal Smith, and there's a couple of guys, Fergal, Matt and Mitch, and they run Moy Hill Community Farm out there. So they're all kind of guys, they were all pro surfers, and they kind of quit that lifestyle, and they're out there just farming and growing organic veg and working with the local community. So I kind of stayed out there and really loved the community, and the surf was pumping and everything felt right. And yeah.
Did you say it was on the West Coast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
County Clare.
Notorious surf spot, right? I mean, I'm not a surfer, but
it's funny. I think like there's actually a couple of very famous big wave spots around there, and I don't know if it's that well known for surfing with non-surfers, but it's definitely like some of the best waves in the world out there. Definitely some of the best waves in Europe. Yeah.
Right.
So
especially got the entire Atlantic crashing into a tiny island.
Shot for saying that, because now everyone's going to go to Ireland on holiday. It'll be really busy. No, the surf is very, very good out there. Yeah.
When you're in Australia, because it does seem like the dream life, and you surfing all the time. Did it just get?
To be honest, I think this is the other thing with like that whole professional surfer. I think everyone thinks that professional surfers is like, the reality is I've done part-time waitressing until I was like 29. I've always had to have other jobs to fund my surfing career as such. And so while I was in Australia, I was working like 4 jobs. I was working concierge at the Novotel Hotel, parking cars. I was waitressing in the evenings in a Mexican restaurant. I was teaching stand-up paddle and surf lessons. So I was like doing a lot of...
When did you surf?
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, and then I was only just like kind of surfing Manly and the beaches around like the northern beaches, and I didn't, it wasn't the dream life. Yeah. It was like living in Australia and working really hard to fund being able to go surfing.
And not even doing it.
And then just surfing closeouts with loads of other people.
Yeah, it's funny how life deals you a blow like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds me of Ron. We were with Ron Kauk, who's a Yosemite climber, and he broke his leg after doing this route, and that just sent him off in a completely different direction.
Yeah. It's kind of from that moment when I like just smashed my head open, kind of life did a bit, kind of U-turned there, and I was like, oh, this shit isn't making me happy. And a few months later I was living on a community farm in Ireland, and
So why move back to London?
So it's a very good question. I actually don't really
other than the ponds.
Why did I move to London? I guess I felt that there was a lot more opportunities here, and the work I've been doing, there's kind of more potential to upscale it a little bit. And I also I guess I really like being out of my comfort zone, and being in the city was probably the furthest out of my comfort zone as I could possibly be.
And so now you've taken to so I go to the Heath every Sunday for the pond dipping.
Yeah.
And now you've taken to being in the Heath daily?
No, I probably get to the Heath like 3 times a week.
Right.
It's quite a trek across the city, so I would love to go there every day, but I do not live near Hampstead.
Right.
So I started cold water swimming about 2 years ago out in Ireland, and we were going daily out there, so we would meet at 7:30 every morning and jump in the sea.
Do you know the Happy Pear guys?
I don't know them, but I know them.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. I have friends who swim with them they do the, what do they call theirs? Swim rise. Yeah.
It's just becoming a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, has it always been I think cold water swimming has always been a huge thing, definitely with like older generations.
Yeah.
But it's becoming like very mainstream
like
in its press coverage. Yeah. But I still think it's
a select group of people that do it.
Yeah.
But more and more people do seem to be doing it or talking about it.
Or is it just getting more and more coverage because if you look at places like Hampstead Ponds and the 40 foot in Dublin, like people have been swimming there for like generations. Like the Heath's been there since 1880 or something, right?
Yeah, when you go down, you always see the same old guys. Like if you went down at 7 o'clock every day, you'd see the same old people.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't see the same young people. They're probably like, you dip in and out. You see them every 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. But the old people are down there every day and religiously.
They've been going, every day for 40 years. So it's definitely like cold water swimming. Well, I don't know if participation is rising or if it's just like the coverage and the press of it is rising.
I think it's rising because I think as a result of the coverage, it's become a lot more accessible. Yeah. Like people are seeing other people doing it, whereas before you just would have talked about it maybe in the pub or something. I go and do this every but now people see it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That kind of maybe is inspiring to them. I know that from going down there quite regularly now, there's people that just randomly turn up. They want to do it once. It's like a fear for them to get into cold water, which is I find so strange. Like people have such a fear of cold water, and they get in, they do it once, they face their fear, and then they, you never see them again. And then there's others that kind of come and go every so often, every few weeks, and there's others that really take to it. Yeah. But it's just the awareness, them having an awareness of other people doing it. Yeah. Allows them to come and do it. Gives them permission almost.
Yeah, I ran my first retreat back in October in Ireland.
Right, so I was going to ask you about this actually.
Yeah, so it was like women's cold water swimming, surfing, yoga, good healthy food, beach clean, just kind of reconnecting with themselves and the environment. And I had quite a few women on that who had never been cold water swimming, never been surfing, were definitely scared of the water. And by the end, everyone's naked, jumping off the pier, swimming around. I think everyone went in the sea swimming in October in Ireland, so it was pretty fresh. We don't use the word cold. And actually, like the community that's now formed of that, I don't think any of them were one-time dippers now. They're all like totally hooked, and they all meet up on the weekends and go swimming together. And dippers. Also, I have to say that, just clear this up, cold water swimming. We don't do much actual swimming. We're like, I don't know if it doesn't sound the same, but cold water floater, cold water dipper.
Cold water floaters maybe not the best.
I know there's like, we say swimming, but like we basically try and spend a minimum of 2 minutes in the water. So in the depths of winter, we do 2 minutes. In the summer, we might do 15.
Do you have a reason why you do it? Like, for me, it was never the reason to do it to begin with. But for me now, it's about like a reset button. Like, shit can be going off for me and I can get in the water and it just kind of clears it. It gives me a new perspective or something, which was never the reason I did it to begin with. It was more about adapting to the cold and breath work. And now it's just like, I need it. Yeah. If I'm having a bad day, it's a way to, in a really healthy way, just kind of wipe the slate clean. Yeah. Do you have
I think I do it because I have to do it. That's like, I absolutely have to do it. I grew up with the ocean as my playground, playing in the sea, and I've spent more time in the water, probably out of it, in my life, and in the water is where I really feel like myself. And jumping in the pond or cold water just really makes me like, you're not thinking about anything else. You're like so present in the moment, and all you're thinking about is like your breath. And yeah, I do it because I have to do it to feel like myself.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for people to get their head around.
Do you do it?
Yeah, in the Brighton.
Okay, good.
So
you're not like, what the F?
No. I mean, but that, partners are like, why do you need?
Yeah.
What's seriously?
It definitely helps me become a much better version of myself. I go and I have other fixes if I can't get swimming. If I can't get swimming, then I'll go to yoga, or I'll go for a park run, or there's other fixes I have. Swimming's the main one.
Not quite the same.
It's not quite the same, no.
Like I have a Ashtanga practice in the morning, and then I'll go to sea after that.
Yeah, I mean that's the ideal morning.
Yeah. But they're quite different. Like the sea, if you can do one thing, it just seems to be.
Yeah.
And I'll also go to CrossFit. I go to Ashtanga CrossFit, and then I'll get in the sea. But if I was only to do one, it would be getting in the sea every time.
Yeah.
It's quite wild as well. I mean, you're about to experience it for the first time tomorrow, getting into the ponds. Yeah. Which is a really, really still environment. It's so quiet and peaceful, and especially if you go I don't know about the women's ponds, but the men's ponds
raucous.
Less so.
I imagine the women's ponds are raucous.
Anarchy,
Well, with the mixed ponds, you kind of cocooned with the trees. You can see out at the end, so to speak. But it's very insular, and it feels very safe and quiet, and you kind of get in and you do your thing very peacefully. Like you wouldn't really make lots of noise. Yeah. The weekend we went into the sea with a bunch of guys that have only been in the ponds, and they were like, roaring and screaming, and it's like, and it was just a radically different experience, having to deal with the rocks underfoot or the stones underfoot, the waves, like not being able to control it at all. It's such a radically different experience.
It is. And I also find it's a very different experience swimming with men instead of women. Like I normally swim with all women and like female groups. Yeah. And it is funny when one or two men come, because anyone's welcome to join us when we're swimming at the sea or something, and every now and then a guy comes along, and it is such a different atmosphere and approach. The guys are running, hooting, woo, running in and loud, and I think we always walk quite like, it's a very different thing when it's a female group. It's not noisy and loud and hooting. It's kind of like we have our little chats, but it's more like checking in with each other, and like we have our like quiet little kind of morning chats and a little slow walk into the sea and float around, and
I guess it's just a natural expression of their own energy, I suppose.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, it sounds very cliche or stereotypical, but that very masculine energy of, I don't know, like screaming or something, and you know, a bit more considered approach, you know, from a feminine perspective.
But it's funny because you see, you haven't seen the Ponds film yet, but
no.
I would recommend it. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that.
You see on that, you know, the men like jumping off the diving board and woo and hooting and roaring. Like you can't do that in the women's pond. Like you don't run and, you know, there's no jumping. There's no jumping or diving in the winter. You have to go down the ladder.
Yeah.
And if you were there like screaming and making noise, you know, that's just not how it works at the women's pond. It's funny how different the atmospheres are between the two ponds.
It's quite funny. A few weeks ago in the men's ponds, during that period of time at the end of February, it was like 15, 16 degrees.
Oh, the February heat wave.
Yeah, and so I've been used to going in the morning at 7 o'clock, and you know, one day, you know, I went at, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was out, and there's a bit of a sun trap in the men's changing area. All of a sudden, like 30 guys just hanging out, sunbathing. Like kind of people kind of getting in the water, but not really getting in the water. It's a completely different atmosphere. And then that was when, you know, people were diving off the board, and it felt like you were at a Lido in the summer and you were 15 again or something. It was really, really surreal. Completely different experience than it normally is. I guess, you know, in some respects, not so much respect being paid to the water, because I feel that's a thing that gets forgotten, is that, you know, it's cold. It's really cold. And there's a certain amount of respect that needs to be paid to that. Yeah. Otherwise, it kicks your ass. And the great thing is you can obviously get out immediately if you're by the ladder. But
you can at the ponds, but not
in the sea.
Swimming,
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it is actually a very dangerous place to put yourself, especially like cold water swimming in the sea and like lakes and rivers and reservoirs. Like it is, I think that you definitely have to give some respect to the water.
I find it genderless. I think that's why I've enjoyed going in the sea, because and it'll be interesting going into the ponds because it is segregated, but when you're in the sea you can be a man and try and fight the ocean. You know, there will be one winner. You know, or you can be the other side and then retreat, but you just have to be with it. You kind of can't go into any stereotype. You're just there, and it's also not segregated. It's the sea. It's like, you know,
the ocean does not discriminate.
No, and that's for me, that's been a really interesting way of just, you realise that you're both. Yeah,
it is also, it's such a different experience swimming in the ocean to the ponds. Like I do. Yeah, right. I love the ponds and I love swimming wherever I can swim, but I don't think anything will ever substitute the ocean. It's just something like being in a body of water that kind of connects everything and everyone. It's a pretty different vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, the temperature as well, because you'd come in the winter with me, wouldn't you, after going into the ponds?
It's just, it's so
different, is it?
Yeah, it's so hard to describe because, you know, for example, at the weekends it was quite rough in the sea. Like you get in the pond and you get in up to your neck. You know, and that's it. Like you just get in up to your neck. There's no kind of, and you can choose to stay in at that depth. I mean, you could come out or go, you know, put your head down, but in the sea you have no control over it. And so, and because of the waves and because of the currents and the rocks, etc., you almost don't know that you're cold, like because you're trying to deal with the wave. But then all of a sudden, you know, you're only up to your waist, and then the next thing, like you're being bashed over the head. So it's like you have less perspective of how cold it is. I feel you can tell it's cold, but like in the ponds, you have to sit with it or you have to be with it. In the sea, it's coming and going and coming and going, and
it's definitely a lot more wild as well. Being at the coast, like I think the coldest the sea ever gets in the UK is about like maybe 7 degrees.
Is that right?
Yeah. Whereas in the ponds, you know, we're swimming in 1.5, 2 degree water.
Yeah.
But it just feels so different to like being in the shelter of the pond and we're surrounded by trees and there's a little shower afterwards to get changed in the shed, to being like at the coast where the wind can be 50 miles an hour and there can be a hailstorm and you're getting, you know, the wind chill might be -15, you've got ice cream headache getting out, and it's I never know people. It's funny when people are like, oh, this feels colder than the sea or this feels colder than the pond. It's they just are so hard to compare.
Yeah. Do you ever get an ice bath?
I've done a few ice baths, I quite like the ice.
Yeah, because then I found ice baths warmer than the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it
makes no sense. And then Chris will be in the sea going, God, this is colder than Hampstead. And you're like, we tried to measure it with a thermometer and it just goes error.
Yeah. I think it's all about how you feel afterwards is how you know.
Yeah.
Like we went for a swim in the pond yesterday, and when we got out, we were like, oh, I can feel my fingers and my toes, and my whole body isn't shivering. I haven't got like, still had the old.
I feel like you're cheating.
Call it like the Kenwood Pond tan when your skin goes all. But like, yeah, the water must have. I mean, it's gone from, I think 2 weeks ago it's 4 degrees and now it's 9 degrees. So that's the difference between filling your fingers and not filling your fingers.
I'm almost not looking forward to the summer. I feel like I just won't really enjoy it as much.
I'm also like dreading the summer. It gets so busy and there's queues, and the colder the water, the more of a challenge it is, but then the more rewarding it is and the more refreshing it is. And
the other amazing thing is the community around it.
Yeah.
You know, so you have have you created a community around it, or you've kind of put it out there and then people join?
So we just when we started cold water swimming, we just were putting little time-lapse videos of ourselves on Instagram, and we just, we'll hashtag Rise Fierce in the morning. We just did it one day, and it kind of just caught on, and people started then like seeing our videos and being like, oh, I'm gonna go swimming, and finding their own friends and going swimming and then tagging us with Rise Fierce, and it's become this whole movement in its own right of kind of mostly women, but swimming kind of all over the UK and Ireland and all over the world.
Wow.
And it's kind of formed a little online community, and then people get in touch and say, do you know anyone who's swimming in wherever, Germany or Brighton or wherever they are? And I kind of post that and connect them, and there's like little pockets of like Rise Fierce communities all over the world now.
After the weekend, Jill MacArthur,
yeah.
She messaged us and she was like, how unusual that it's just guys going in. She was like, it would be the best dating, because it's like male and women. And she was like, guys just don't really go in. And that's kind of true. Yeah. Brighton is majority women, and they're hard. I mean, they're
women swimming.
Yeah. And then there are like the proper open water swimmers.
Yeah, they all swim out around the pier and stuff, don't they?
Yeah. And they're like, you go there. But they do wear wetsuits.
Yes. I mean,
I'm hashtag no wetsuits for me.
I'm not, skins all the way.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm like, that's the magic thing I discovered with surfing kind of being my career as such for a long time. I've fallen in and out of love with it and become alienated from it, and then found it again, and kind of my relationship with it's gone in waves. But what I found from the cold water swimming is that I get that exact same kind of the buzz and the connection with myself and the connection with nature and all like the good positive things I get from surfing, I get from just being in the ocean. I don't have to drive an hour to the coast and then put on my wetsuit and hike down my surfboard and I don't have to do all that shit to feel that way anymore. I can just put on my togs or be naked, whatever, and I can just jump in the sea for 2 minutes and I have all the same benefits. So I can't be asked to fight around with a wetsuit that much anymore. I just jump in.
Are you doing breath work when you get in the water?
I definitely focus on my breath and focus on like keeping like long slow exhales, but I don't do, I don't follow the Wim Hof method or any of the
it's interesting
breathing techniques. Method. The Rise Fierce method is just jump in,
but not in the ladies' ponds.
Oh yeah, don't jump in. Yeah, and also not anywhere where it's dangerous to actually jump in. But
it's interesting. Kind of a lot of people want to do that hyperventilation breath to begin with, and and then very, very interesting actually, because a lot of people are doing that breath, and then quite a few people saying, this is not, this is kind of making me really anxious before I get in the water, and I'm already anxious to get in the water, and it's like, let's just do the opposite. Let's just do nasal, get in the water, slow the breath right down through the nose, out the mouth to begin with, then just through the nose, and like keep the system really calm, and then it's going to allow your body to adapt to it, as opposed to being like supercharged.
I said this to you earlier.
Supercharged is about jumping in, isn't it? That's when you jump in and it becomes a really bad idea.
I totally respect the Wim Hof movement. I think he's doing amazing things, but for me, that like hyperventilating breathing and making, like, we live in stress all the time. We live in stressful worlds, and there's phones and sirens and light. It's just everything's kind of stressful, and I don't really want to go further into stress. I just want to chill. And so I'm like very much, restorative yoga, yin yoga, keep it calm. And I would rather spend 10 minutes doing like 3-part yogic breath and being calm before going in the water, as opposed to
3-part yoga breath. What's that?
Belly, ribs, chest.
Got you. I just started doing the it could be considered the opposite of the Wim breathing method, which is Butikio. Dr. Butikio is a Russian guy that was having a lot of respiratory issues, and discovered a system whereby it was restricting your breath allowed you to become more CO2 tolerant, which allows, you know, a better functioning of the whole respiratory system. One of the guys that we interviewed, or one of the guys we had on the podcast right at the beginning, Leo Daniels, he was a terrible asthma sufferer. Couldn't walk more than 2 football fields without having asthma attack. Did the BTKM method for 6 months and completely cured himself of asthma. And I, you know, and so it's a really parasympathetic, really rest and digest type of breathing
an Irish
method.
Dipper.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. But just finding that, you know, that's the type of breath I like to do, just to kind of keep myself really calm. Because like you said, we're constant, especially living in London, you're always kind of on. You're always, you know, in that fight or flight mode.
It's very stressful being in London.
Yeah, it's not the west coast of Ireland.
But yeah, and we said this earlier when we weren't recording, but it's really not one breath fits all. I think everyone finds their own. But I mean, with the Rise Fierce movement, it's also keeping it like quite accessible and not too serious. It's just, you know, it's kind of about having fun and just getting in the seats together and connecting. And it's not like we all sit around and meditate and do our breathing. And that's, you know.
Yeah.
You get in the water and the water teaches you what you need to know.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? It's like a 3-minute activity.
Yeah.
For something so short, the bonds that it creates.
Yeah.
Is really incredible.
Yeah.
Like that shared experience. But for there's not probably, you couldn't play a game of, I don't know, football for 3 minutes and have that same bond. Or
and just, I think the accountability that, you know, when I was in Ireland and I was swimming with a group of women there every morning, that if you say you're going to be there at 7:30 in the morning, you have to be there, because you can't leave one person on their own in the slipway. It's like shivering in the dark. So it's that accountability, and then they become the faces that you see every morning at 7:30 through all your life experiences. So whether you've lost your job, or your dog's died, or a friend has died, or your relationship's breaking up, or whatever challenges that you're going through in life, like they become the faces that you see every morning, and they're there for you for that kind of, I don't know, it becomes quite a special relationship.
You know what? That's a really great way to put it. They're the faces you see every morning. They're there for you. Like, I'm kind of currently obsessed by this fact that no one knows any of their neighbours now. Thinking of our parents' generation, they would have gone next door and had a cup of tea. Yeah. And that's how, you know, they would have got rid of their day's issues or problems. They would have talked them all out. But now we don't have that. We don't have that experience anymore. But with the cold, the faces that you see, they're there for you. It facilitates those conversations, which allows you to express yourself and get those things out of you if you need to. Yeah,
it's also quite easy to cry in the sea. Hide your tears in the salt water.
I'm only crying because it's cold. It's so cold.
No, it's like for me, I have made some of my best friends through cold water swimming, and they'll be friends for life. And you know, whenever shit gets hard or challenging, it's always like, right, let's go jump in the pond, or we need to swim tomorrow, like that'll fix us.
Experience of something that's not man-made.
Yeah,
is just
it's
vital.
It's an incredibly powerful tool. Like, it's so simple. Like, put your body in some cold water, and I've seen it absolutely change people's lives.
Yeah. Have you done the extreme heat from cold? As in
extreme hot water.
Bath, a proper bath on the side of the
Maldives,
no, like sauna type stuff.
Yeah, I love a sauna. I love extremes. I love being in the hot or the cold. I don't really like. I hate English summer. It's like the worst medium temperature thing ever. Right. So yeah, I love hot cold. And actually, where we swim in Ireland, there's a community swimming pool at the beach with a sauna. So that's what we do in Ireland, is that we go for our morning swim.
Seawater pool?
No, like the community swimming pool is like at the beach car park. Right. So we go for our swim and have a sauna afterwards. Nice. It's like the morning routine.
I wish Hampstead could do that.
I know. Well, they have a temporary sauna in the winter at Parliament Hill.
Oh, do they? Right.
In Brockwell, I think.
Maybe check that one out.
They have a sauna in Brighton in a horse box. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and in Ireland, there's a lady with I can't remember what it's called, the Bosca Baja or something. She has like a little mobile sauna trailer that she takes around to cold water swimming spots, and
that's great.
It's pretty epic, isn't it?
So you did a TED Talk recently?
Yeah, I did a TED Talk in
a couple of months ago, right?
Maybe December-ish, November, December, yeah.
And
that was scary.
Yeah, right. How was it?
it was actually really, really fun.
Right.
I got asked to do it months in advance, and I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. And kind of, as I do with a lot of things, just pretending it wasn't happening. I was like, la 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 la, that's not real. And then it came to the point where I was like, oh God, I actually need to like book my flights and write this thing. So I kind of wrote it 2 weeks before, and then...
Did you know what you were the topic, did you know that's what you were going to talk about?
I mean, the TED talk I spoke at was called the Green Wave, and it was a sustainability focused talk. So I knew I had to talk around sustainability.
Yeah.
And my story. So yeah, I think that to be honest, I wrote the talk 2 weeks before, and then for the week before I practiced it quite a lot. So by the time I went on stage, I knew exactly what I was basically sharing my story. I knew what I was talking about. So all I wanted to do was go on stage and have fun and enjoy the experience. And I did. I absolutely loved it.
Right. Maybe you should talk a bit, I don't know if you've seen it, but
recite it,
Yeah. So yeah, if you can recite it, yeah. No, for those that are listening, that obviously we'll put links to the talk, but it'd be great, if you talk about, if you could tell us,
because your experience.
Yeah. So my TED talk kind of centered around my light bulb moment in the Maldives about 5 years ago. So just when I was moving to Ireland, kind of had a trip to the Maldives, and it was unavoidable to notice the plastic pollution out there. Like, the scale of it is absolutely crazy. It's an island nation, and it's one of the most densely populated places on the planet. And with a huge influx of tourism, there's just nowhere to put the rubbish. So they've created a whole island called Trash Island to process all the plastic. But I mean, it's just floating around in the sea. It's everywhere.
So basically an island exclusively for the rubbish.
Yes. Just an island.
Wow.
Piled high with plastic, and a strong wind just blow. Sadly it's not a problem just in the Maldives, it's a problem all over the world. You look in the Thames just here and you see the same thing, but in the Maldives was the first place I really noticed it, and I kind of realized that I can't just carry on like going on these nice little surf trips and having a nice jolly time when there's some serious big problems here that need dealing with. And kind of, the ocean had been my playground, and realised I had a responsibility to do something about protecting it and promoting its well-being. So I got home from the Maldives and was kind of like, right, what can I do here? And as I started so I moved out to Ireland then and started to make these small changes in my life, like, reusable drinking bowls and bamboo toothbrushes and just various little changes in my life. Organic veg that's from the local farmers market, so the supermarket, and I started sharing the changes on my Instagram feed and using my social channels to show simple little changes that were so easy. And yeah, it kind of worked. And I hate using the word inspired, but other people started kind of joining in, and I use it to promote other people's movements as well. So like the 2-minute beach clean. Right. That was started by a guy in the southwest of England. He's just like one guy doing his little beach clean, sharing his hashtag. And now there's over 100,000 posts of people worldwide doing like their 2-minute beach clean. And I know that just removing like a small piece of plastic from the beach and then putting it in the recycling isn't going to do that much, but the awareness that brings in people, that they are on the beach seeing the plastic, realizing that there's an issue, and then starting to make changes in their lives. And also I think plastic pollution is a really good kind of gateway into environmentalism and other issues. And
when we were with Cyril from Parley, he was sort of saying it has to directly affect the people before a change is made. And he was like, the 2-minute beach clean, when you see it, you're like, oh, and if you don't buy
and people don't. I organised a beach clean in Ireland a couple of months ago, and one of the ladies picked a toothbrush up off the beach and was like, why has someone been brushing their teeth on the beach and left their toothbrush behind? I was like, haha, no. But she didn't realise, like, it's like that where do you think your toothbrush ends up? Like, where do you think, and anything you flush down the toilet, where do you think it ends up? And
the tampon applicator stat was, I mean, I thought you were going to say per year, and then you said per day.
I actually can't remember it off the top of my head now. It's something like, I have to double fact check.
2 million or
something like 3.5 million tampons get flushed down the toilet in the UK every day.
Every day.
The stats are in my TED talk.
In the UK, disposable nappies.
Oh my God,
8
nappies
million
are
a day.
Awful.
8 million a day.
8 million nappies a day go into landfill.
Nappy guilt. Are you having nappy guilt? James has got a new baby.
Well, yeah. we're
doesn't wear a nappy.
We doesn't wear a nappy.
Yeah.
Just wears my pants.
It's just yeah. I mean, there's obviously like reusable nappies, and there's lots of like organic, better, compostable nappies, but bloody hell, they're expensive.
Yeah, it's such a minefield. My background's clothing, and sustainability in that is.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you start? What is sustainable? Everyone's talking about a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, plastic. Everyone can.
It's very tangible.
It.
Yeah,
it's like
tangible issue. Yeah.
But anything else is just very hard to define.
Yeah. So you know that one of you just said about when you see it is when you really start to like connect with the issue. So I used to have a lot surfing. You'd see like used sanitary pads and tampons and condoms kind of floating in the sea past you, and I had a used sanitary pad hit me in the face once, which was quite gross. But so I kind of went into that in my TED talk about reusable period products, and there's so many amazing things out there now, because I think, well, periods are a bit of a taboo still, which is fucked up, because most of us women make up half the population, and a lot of those women and people who identify as women having periods. So period products, traditional ones, have a lot of single-use plastic. So kind of went off on my TED talk on a little period plastic rant.
It's everywhere though. When we were in the hospital, single-use plastic was, everything was one use, and you're just there going, you're just watching it pile up. I think just come in and rip it, put it in the bin, and you're like.
Didn't Cyril say it's like, as a design, from the perspective of the
biggest design failure we've ever done. It's
because it's so successful.
Failure. Yeah.
Because it's such a successful product.
And that designers don't think about what happens if this goes absolute massive, because then there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's then thinking about the next stage of it.
It's so fucked up. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because also there's all this stuff, it takes 400 years for plastic to break down. We don't know how long it takes for plastic to break down, because plastic was only invented less than 100 years ago. So it's like we do not know. And the current thought is that the plastic will never break. It breaks down into smaller pieces, but those like microplastics will never be gone, which is kind of terrifying.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah. And it is, I think, as obviously there are much bigger problems in the world than plastic pollution, but I think that the plastic pollution is a very tangible problem that people can see, make small changes, and they feel empowered. And I think through that you become much more aware of other kind of environmental issues.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
Next thing you know, you're all vegans.
Well, we're having a lot of conversations about that, but that's for another podcast. And quite literally another podcast that's coming up.
I'm vegetarian and I avoid dairy. I would like to be vegan, but I'm not quite there yet. But I also know that vegan on its own is not the answer. Yeah. We have to eat local, organic, plastic-free. There's a much...
It's like breath. There's no one solution for everyone. Everyone has to eat like
you look at the carbon footprint of, so you're a vegan, you're having avocado, which is another podcast, but like the carbon footprint of avocado that's imported from the other side of the world is actually bigger than the carbon footprint of a local organic free-range egg. And yes, I know there's cruelty to animals involved in that production of that egg, but if we're fucking up the soil and the air and the water, everything's going to die.
Yeah.
According to Zach Bush, we've got 70 years left.
Yeah, we're both obsessed by a doctor called Zach Bush.
Are we all dead in 70 years?
Yep. Because
I kind of believe it. You were looking out there just then saying, we're looking at the skyline of London, talking about the architecture, and you were like, will those buildings still be there in 400 years?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't.
Not the new ones. The old ones will be.
Yeah, no, that's what we were talking about.
St. Paul's Cathedral, solid.
Yeah, that's going to be there for another 400 years, but the Shard, etc. It's like, I don't, whether that's because it is. I feel like it'd be taken down, like it has the ability to be taken down, whereas things like St. Paul's just are so solid. There's just not that same consideration.
Well, there was so Zach Bush, he's this medical doctor in America that's doing big things with farming and death and life and soil. Totally life-changing.
Like the sound of him. Is he
amazing.
Composting human bodies and stuff?
It's probably not official, but
he's, how would I describe it? Basically, what's happening to the world is happening to us. We are the world. Mm-hmm. So how we're made up, and those things that we're seeing is happening inside us, because the soil is our microbiome.
Yep.
So whatever we're doing to the soil, that's happening to us. Therefore, and he said some things on the Rich Roll podcast, like everyone's basically lonely
Mm-hmm.
But when we have disease, they're lonely cells, and he's proven this with cancer. So when you're lonely, then you start to shout louder to be recognized, and when you start to shout louder, things don't like it, so you become more aggressive, and then hence cancer just goes right through the body. So he's doing wild things with that stuff.
So does he work with like on the loneliness then? Is he working with like communities and like connection
well, he is actually,
to combat loneliness, to then combat to prove that helps good health?
Yeah, kind of. He has a laboratory. He's doing stuff with farmers to support them in turning their farms from sort of factory farming into natural no-till.
CSA,
yeah, and that the yield's bigger. But he said in his podcast that if New York was left for 2 years, it would be completely repopulated.
You're hearing where all my quotes come from.
It would be
I know. I said to you, remember that film? Have you seen I Am Legend? Will Smith, and but I love that, like when the city's just not been touched by humans, and like what would it look like, and how would it rewild, and
it's an interesting thing. I think you said in your TED talk actually. Oh no, maybe I read it in one of your posts about surfing and needing new equipment, and
what wisdom did I say?
I think you had to get a new surfboard, and you said, "Can we get into the ocean without actually impacting and killing it?" And it reminds me of a conversation. You'll remember the documentary name between Doug Tompkins, who was the founder of North Face,
180 degrees south,
and Yvonne, the founder of Patagonia, and they were talking about the impact two ginormous companies are having on the environment, regardless of how environmentally friendly they are, and and how conscious they are as organisations. And I think Doug said to Yvonne, it's like,
well, Doug he founded North Face, he sold it, he left, he founded Esprit, he sold it, he left, and then he bought a massive chunk of Patagonia.
Interesting.
And he was and they did this trip on a little fishing boat from top of South America to Patagonia, 180 degrees south, and then they redid it, and they met Doug down there, and Doug and Yvonne were standing in like a little hut, and Yvonne was, and this is when they were old, because Doug, I think he died a couple of years later. Yvonne was talking about how they're doing great things. He said, if you really want to help the world, you stop your business. And it kind of created this thing. It's like, use your money to buy the land to protect it, because when you own it, no one can start to do stuff. And it was just
ultimately you have an impact on everything. So I guess it's about lessening the impact that you have. I.e., using your surfboard until it's literally falling apart, as opposed to buying a new one every.
And I always say, I don't people are like, I just want to leave the world a better place. I think by living and existing, I don't think we can leave the world a better place, but I think we can consciously choose to try and leave it slightly less shit. Like, I want to make it slightly less shit than I could make it.
sort of theory that after the Zach Bush thing, that all these gyres where the plastic's going in the oceans, it's like
multiple.
Is that the ocean's way of cleaning it up? It's just grouping all this detritus together. Like if we leave the soil, the more stuff we're doing, we're damaging the soil. And I'm just using Zach's thing, and he's like, we start to till it, then we break the microbiome, then we do all this stuff. He's like, just leave it. Don't compact it, just leave it. And the worms will chip away inside, even if it's fully compacted, and they'll start to do it. And you're like, we just get in the way. We've got in the way of everything. Climbing gets in the way of chalk all over these beautiful rocks, and no one cleans it off. It's like, if we just stop, not stop climbing, but do it in a different way.
That's what the guys at Moy Hill Farm, so the community farm in Ireland where I was living for a little while, they bought they started off with 10 acres of land, so they all chipped in some money, bought this big patch of land, and then they've made a trust so that they don't own the land now, the trust owns the land, and the land is now protected, and they've just been growing trees out there. So they've got a little project called Home Tree, which is basically for corporations to kind of carbon offset and plant trees, and they've just all chucked in all their life savings to buy this big plot of land to plant trees, and the land's protected, and no one can ever, so it's just full of native trees, and it'll be there forever.
Do you know Kat from Yogi Bear?
Yes and no.
I think she was doing something with them where it was, I thought I recognised the name, where for the sale of each one of a particular mat that she had, she was able to, plant a tree. I think she planted maybe 500 trees last year or something from the yoga. I guess it's activities like that So if you're going to buy a yoga mat,
yeah,
buy one where it has like a positive outcome, you know, other than just it provides the surface for you to.
Yeah, and the same if I fly somewhere, like just chuck the boys, you know, it's only a couple of quid per tree. If I'm going to buy a flight, offset that by sticking some money. You can just go on the website and make a donation, buy some trees, and like, you know, I know they're good guys and they're out there planting trees. It's not going to some giant corporation that are doing dodgy offsetting that doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's a stately home called Knepp. I think it's called Knepp, Knepp. I think just north of Brighton, south of London, in between. And that was this family. They turned it into a farm. They were like, we've got to farm it. And they've now just rewilded the whole place. I found out about, and it's amazing. And
there's a photographer.
But it's actually making more money because they realised they had to recoup it by not doing anything to it and people coming and staying than it was as a farm.
There's a photographer called Sebastião Salgado, and he grew up on a rainforest farm in Brazil. And by the time he got to his adulthood, it'd been completely stripped, deforested. And he went back there, you know, as an adult. I think his father or his parents died. And I think maybe as the eldest, you know, he was given the farm. And they started to replant, and they've now replanted something like 1 million acres of the Brazilian rainforest. And the way that he's done it has now become the model for the government to replant the rainforest in Brazil. And what it took them a few years to kind of work out how to do it, because certain trees that would have been native there wouldn't grow anymore because they didn't have the support structure of other trees. But once they kind of got the flow of it, then nature just returned. It, like, you know, they just needed to help the process begin by replanting something, and then the animals came, and that, you know, did whatever it did to the ecosystem. And, you know, very small changes. There's a great video on YouTube also of when they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone Park.
Yeah, wolves are a very interesting one, aren't they?
Yeah, well, up until that point, basically they had a problem with deer, like too many deer.
Yeah.
And because they'd removed the apex predator being the wolf, and when the wolf came back in, the wolf started to keep the deer numbers down, which meant that there wasn't so much grazing done on the grass, which allowed the rivers to stop being eroded, which, you know, just the follow on from this one kind of decision was just phenomenal.
Have you read Feral?
No.
Yes, you should read that. It's a book about rewilding.
Right, okay.
You'd like it.
Okay. Put it on the list. I'm reading a classical education versus modern education at the moment.
Ooh.
Super interesting. Essentially, classical education was about learning how to learn and learning how to think, and applying that to life, whereas modern education is about remembering history.
Being told what to think.
Yeah. You know, just studying certain subjects, so maths, history, science. So you're not actually learning anything. You're just learning how to remember
information.
Yeah. And you know, and it's that type of thinking, actually, this classical education thinking of learning how to think and learning how to learn, that will, I guess, will
critically analyze things.
Yeah, will kind of, you know, help get us out of the mess, because if you can only regurgitate facts, then you can't actually do anything. Whereas if you can analyze things, you can start to make better decision processes to go forward.
What do you do now you're in London?
This is my least favourite question when someone says to me, what do you do? Because I don't have a very easily defined job title.
That's all good.
So
I don't think many people do now.
No, go on. No, we don't.
So I write. I work freelance as a writer, and I write for a couple of magazines and written a little bit for The Independent and some Condé Nast titles. And I do some blogging. I do some freelance production stuff and production assistance. I do some modelling. I do some stuff that I guess would fall under the term influencer, although I hate the word influencer. Yeah, what else? Probably some other stuff. Started hosting rich women's retreats.
So how did the first one go?
Amazing, so good.
Did you find an immediate?
I just want to go back.
Did you find an immediate uptake on it?
Yeah, I was kind of decided I was going to do this retreat, and obviously terrifying. No one's going to book it on, and I thought maybe there'd be like 6 or 7 people, and I think from one Instagram post I sold 21 spaces.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, all of the women there were super cool, and connected with all of them, and I think we'll have lasting friendships with most of them. And yeah, it was just really, really, I mean, the place where I hold that retreat in the west of Ireland at the Cliffs of Moher is just magic. And
this may be a broad statement, but I feel like there's more and more gender specific workshops happening. It's like men only retreat or women's only retreats. You know, we know one that's taking place in like a men's only retreat that's taking place in Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one is about staying out under the stars and learning how to build your shelter and how to build a fire. These kind of ancient practices that probably until about 50 years ago most people could do, but now if you live in London and you work in an office, you probably are really, really disconnected from it.
Yeah. There's very interesting studies that show, studies basically show that women perform a lot better in small single-sex groups.
Right.
And I think that especially in places like sports, surfing and things like that, where it's a very male-dominated industry, especially then we almost need those micro-environments to kind of create a space where women can flourish. And it's kind of hard to describe as well, but there's something incredibly magic about having that all-female space in the space that we hold at the retreat, and women can just, from day one, we sit in a circle and share, and women open up about whatever experiences they've had, miscarriages, divorce, deaths,
It's incredibly natural though.
Yeah.
It's for groups of women and to congregate and groups of men to congregate.
Yeah.
It's kind of when it...
Yeah, is do you know the other thing that's funny though is studies show that men perform better in mixed spaces.
Well, you can imagine that because men are trying to peacock around women.
So all boys' schools aren't a healthy education as such. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway.
You can see that, can't you?
Yeah.
Well, it would have been testosterone just amongst men.
Yeah.
Because I guess, I'm again making wild generalizations. I guess it becomes like this alpha male scenario, like someone needs to prove they're the biggest, strongest. So kind of get a lot of this posturing within it, which is not to say that it shouldn't be allowed to be expressed, but you can see how that could, if not managed correctly or allowed to be how it should be, how it could kind of get quite, go wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. We've experienced that recently, haven't we? Just individual beings, certainly becoming a dad. It's like all I want to do is go and hunt, not necessarily hunt animals, but it's like I've got to go and provide. And it's like don't get in my you do that and I'll do this because I can't. It was instant, wasn't it? I can remember saying to you, it's like all I want to do was get cold in the sea and see something and just it was so it went wild.
What's he going at?
That's just how it just felt like.
I guess it's just natural. I think probably half the problem is that we don't allow people to be naturally who they are, and whether that's congregating in groups or
was it intentional to be a women's?
Yeah, or did it just I did intentionally decide to hold a women's only space just because I wanted to be able to create a very safe and healing space. And I personally have experienced lots of trauma in my life from some men, and would maybe feel slightly more, I don't know, intimidated or less likely to open up maybe if they're
quite.
So it did take a lot of thinking and I definitely want to host some mixed retreats in the future as well.
That'll be very different.
But there is just something absolutely magic about holding a women-only space.
But I think why? Just keep it to what works.
Yeah, it totally works. But I also know there's a hell of a lot of men out there that would really benefit and enjoy from coming on a cold water swimming, surfing, yoga retreat. Totally. So, and also, you said something about it earlier, but it'd be pretty cool to host a mixed retreat in the way that you'd be connecting really cool people with similar interests. So, that's for the future. At the minute, I'm only organising the women.
I guess it's similar to the ponds. I think you were saying earlier on about sort of the women's space and the man's space in the ponds, just radically different experiences.
Yeah, totally different atmospheres.
Yeah,
they're created.
You can imagine the men trying to impress the women in yoga, just giving a full stretch, and it's just humbled. Anyway, so how many do you do? You just do the one?
I did one in October. I have another one at the start of April in Ireland.
In Ireland again?
Yeah, I've got another one so I've got one in October again, and Ireland. So 2 a year in Ireland.
Yeah.
I'm just setting up one in Wales, hopefully.
Oh, nice.
It's in the pipes. And then I'm hoping to do some day retreats in London.
Oh yeah, nice.
To just get people
at the ponds, or
that will involve.
You don't have to give away the idea, to be honest.
Yeah,
you don't have to give away the idea.
Yeah, basically, it will be like yoga, brunch, women's circle, cold water swim. Just get people out of their hectic, busy, crazy London lives, and just get them to like slow down, connect, make some new friends, get in the water, have some wholesome food.
Super important.
And hopefully accessible, because London for a day, there's a lot of people who need it, I think.
Yeah, I always think that about the men's pond, like the changing area is probably about the size of a tennis court.
Yeah,
you know, it's big. Like you could do something in that space, you know, because it's only around the edges where you've got the actual changing area that's undercover. You know, the central space is just open, and you know, they've got a grass area. Obviously it's the Heath, but they've got a grass area just immediately outside the door. And then you've got the pond. It's like the perfect kind of playground to do something like that, however that may be, you know. I kind of just want them to set a fire up just as you get out of the pond, though. Just on the side on the pontoon.
Have a bonfire.
Yeah.
I guess the thing, if you were trying to monetize anything,
then
you would need permissions and licenses, and that would be it. But yeah, there's definitely some.
Is the women's space like that?
The women's space, we have a much smaller changing room, but nicer changing room.
Hot showers, right?
We have one hot shower. That's correct.
That's incredible.
I always like, you know, the men have got a diving board, but the women have got a hot shower. I don't use the hot shower because it just makes you get cold. But we do have a women's meadow, which is no mobile phones, no men, and you're allowed to be nudie.
Right.
So there's like lots of just
there's a naked
sunbathing
area in the men's as well.
Yeah, the women's meadow is epic place to just go and read your book.
Where is the women's pond? Is it in relation to the men's?
If you know, at the entrance of the men's, there's like a toilet block up, so it's just past that toilet block down there. You can actually see this time of year the leaves are all off the trees, and you can see the women's pond from from the men's. You could see some women on there. Right,
the men's is really, you know, you kind of just walk by it on two different
obvious,
sides.
Isn't it?
It's really obvious.
Quite open.
From the roaring that happens when the men get in the pond.
We have a little WhatsApp group that anyone's welcome to join, called Pond Pals.
Pond Pals.
But it's basically, there's just like me and one other girl that always go, and no one else ever comes. But we think there's a group in London called Swim Dem Crew, and they're like
we interviewed with Nathan.
Yeah, super cool. And my housemate swims with them, but we're like, they're so cool, Swim Dem Crew, and then we're like Pond Pals. Like the least cool London swimming group ever.
Yeah, we have a WhatsApp group for the mixed ponds on a Sunday morning, and there's probably, I feel like there's about 20 people on there. There's a lot of conversation, but probably only like 4 or 5 people that. Yeah,
mine's pretty much like every time it's like, hey, who wants to come swimming? And it's basically just my housemate is like, yes, me.
From the sofa.
We're like, why are all these other people like just not saying anything, but they're still in the group?
Yeah.
I wonder if they then go into work going, I was in the ponds this morning.
Well, I have to say their participation was much higher in the summer, and the activity decreased as the temperatures decreased.
Yeah, I'm kind of really grateful actually that my introduction to it was in kind of November, December time. So it was already cold. Yeah, and so when it got to the stage where the mixed ponds was freezing over, albeit a very, very thin layer of ice, I was really excited about it. You know, I felt like I'd been in training to get into a frozen pond. I would have felt robbed if I hadn't had at least one day where it's frozen, and it was actually only one day. Yeah, it's good to as well, because I think if you start this time of year, it's like starting when it's cold, but it's getting warmer. Yeah. You can't. I absolutely love the autumn when you have the winter to look forward to, and you just know the water's like you're kind of looking forward to those cold mornings, right? Yeah. Waiting for them to creep back in. Yeah. Someone in our group, you know, that I swim with on a Sunday morning, to paraphrase, sort of said that, you know, she always feels apprehension upon getting into the ponds, but as soon as she gets out, she can't wait for the next week. And it's like, you know, it's cold. That's the whole point. It's cold, but you do come out of it feeling amazing, and you can't wait until the next time you get in. Yeah, it's a really bizarre, counterintuitive feeling almost. There's some amazing quotes in that pond film, but I think the general thing is like, if you can face the water at 2 degrees or 5 degrees, you can face anything. Like you just feel I've heard like a superhero or something. Similar. You know, you get out of the water, and that is really why I've seen it. Like with the women on the retreat, that you see them get in the water, they thought they could never do that, and they get out of the water and they're like, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. And the empowerment that gives them in like other areas of their life is so cool. The success of the pond film, which has just been released as we as we are recording this, but it would have been out for a period of time when it comes out, is testament to how popular it's become. The fact that it's selling out cinemas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's a lovely film, but it's like the fact that there's that much interest in a film about people getting in a pond of cold water is testament to, how popular it's become.
Yeah, I think we're so lucky to have that space in the middle of the city. Like,
yeah, that's the other thing.
It's free.
You're in Zone 2 in London, and it feels like you're in the countryside. In relative, I want to say it's clean water, relatively clean water. I mean, I know you have to sign a bit of a disclaimer, but for the 6 months that I've been going, or 5 months, I have never had any problems with it.
Summer, it's probably greener, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. When you join the Mixed Pond Winter Swimming Club, you have to sign a disclaimer that's got a list of
possible
Viles disease and all these things. But I also, I mean, especially the women's, the water seems really clean up there.
Yeah. And then the men's, they have some type of water filter system to stop the algae from growing.
Yeah.
It's
funded by they were going to
just don't open your mouth.
Yeah, funded by the corporation. What is it? City of London.
Right.
So the fact it's like free. I mean, it's donation based, so you're going to throw in £2 every time. Or we chucked in some money at Christmas to pay for our swims for the year, but like essentially having a free space like that in the middle of London.
I don't think the men's pay machine works.
It's funny, it's like an old parking meter, and I think when you put the money in, it tells you to go and put the ticket in your windscreen.
It's got to put it on your clothes in the changing area.
The one thing that Ponds film does, I mean, it's an observational documentary, so it's not their fault at all, but the one thing it does really highlight is that cold water swimming is still a very white, mostly able-bodied sport.
Yeah, that would be my experience from the men's
hobby.
Dipping,
but it does seem to be predominantly. I mean, as far as like age diversity and like swimming ability diversity, amazing, but super white still, right?
You know what's funny? Every time I go down is I would probably generalize and say that it's mainly 50s and over, and then there's a good amount of people under that age. But the 50s and over are really regular. It's like you will see the same guy there every morning at 7 a.m. Yeah. The young guys, you will probably see them once every 3 or 4 weeks. I think I said that earlier. But what's really nice is, the old guy, the lifeguard will pop his head around the corner and say, I've got the croissants under the toaster.
So cute.
Yeah, there's that sense to it. Like he goes in and has a chat, they have their croissant, and, just... I don't know, there's just this familiarity or, regular kind of attendance that kind of breeds that like sort of friendship. Yeah. Hey Bert, how you doing type thing. And you see the old guys almost like kind of proud, kind of like sort of punch on the shoulder, like, you can do it. And I've
really seen that at the men's pond as well. The lifeguards greet like every single person who go and swim there by name, and everyone stops and has a chat with them. It's so nice. Yeah. And I also love at the women's pond, I'm still considered one of the young ones. Like I'm in my 30s, but I'm one of the young ones.
I'm not so sure, the lifeguards, obviously they're there to save you, but you can get pretty cold. I'm not so sure how quick they'll be able to get out to you, but at least they've got the croissants under the toaster for those that survive.
I think that it just goes to show the importance of community, really, and how it's not there. Like you go and experience that. I mean, sure you had it with surfing. You have a bond with those people that, like you said, you'll be friends for life. You don't even have to say much to them. Mm-hmm. Just that act of getting in the water. It's almost if they're not there and you've seen them every day, you're like, where's John?
You really notice when someone's missing from the lineup. You're like, God, I haven't seen like whoever, South African Neil for a while, or I haven't seen, Yeah. And half the people you speak to in the lineup every day, and you see them all year round, and I don't even know half of their names. So just like people I chat to, and they're familiar faces that I really like seeing, and we catch up and we have a nice time. But it's the water is very good at connecting people.
Yeah, just in a way that maybe that's why it's taken off so much, in massive contrast to like Free Solo. Yeah, which people are desperate to watch this film of.
Yeah, it's
Alex
an amazing film, amazing, yeah.
But it's like you're living vicariously through that, or you can live in that state of flow every morning by going into the cold water with your mates. But people just fall in that middle ground. Yeah,
I do think community is like, I think that connection is what it's all about, and I think that we definitely need it. I think age of social media and trying to be hyper connected all the time has led us all to just be really, really disconnected.
Yeah.
It's so depressing seeing everyone like on their phones.
Do you get a lot of inquiries? A lot of inquiries?
I do get a lot of inquiries.
Do you get a lot of messages from people, posting you getting in the cold?
Yes, I get a lot of messages on social media, and most of them are really nice. Lots of people who want to get into swimming, who've just done their first swim. Asking for advice, asking if I know anyone else who they can swim with. Yeah.
Do you get many people that message you to see if they can come and swim with you?
Yeah, that's how I've met some of my best friends. When I first moved to London, I just stuck an Instagram story up like, yo, I'm going for a swim at the ponds. Anyone want to join? And 3 or 4 people came along, and 2 of those are now my good London mates, and we swim together.
Wow.
Yeah.
The power of
my housemate is someone who I met on my retreat in October. We've moved in together.
That's the application process for the retreat. Do you have a spare room potentially available in the future?
But yeah, it's just, I guess you make quite strong friendships quite quickly. Yeah.
So it does work, social media.
Social, yes. There's 2 sides of social media, right? But I think I'm quite lucky with my following and the community I have online, and it's like a really powerful tool to connect people and to spread positive messages, I think.
Community seems like a good place to end it, really.
It's gonna they're going to work out a way to handily link this onto the next podcast that'll start with someone talking about community.
We're batching these podcasts this time so we can curate the experience. The next one's about saunas.
Oh,
I would love a sauna.
What now?
I was talking to Jess. I would love one now. Jess, who's a friend of mine.
We probably can't do one now.
He was saying that he's found this sauna tent, this Scandinavian sauna tent that you can kind of pack up and move around. I was like, that sounds amazing. It has like a log burner inside it, but it's like,
I'm up for it.
Yeah.
Let's get one at the pond.
But then you can move it around, couldn't you?
We'll go halves.
Yeah.
Sophie, thank you.
No worries.
Thanks so much.